It was the first week of November. Over the cobblestone streets of one of Prague's oldest districts, fog hung as though it intended to stay forever. Claire Novak was seeing the city she'd lived in for 3 years through a stranger's eyes for the first time. The divorce proceedings, the suffocating silence that followed, and finally, this small, cheap apartment. 5th floor, elevator broken, radiator feeble. But the view from the window was good. The building across the street dated from the 1920s, Art Deco ornaments, rusted iron balconies, and 4 windows on every floor. Claire had counted them in her first week. A habit, an old habit. Journalists count everything, classify it, catalog it, until something silences them. What had silenced Claire was the resignation letter she'd left on her editor's desk 8 months ago. That night, the night she would later call the night everything began, it was 1:17 a.m. She couldn't sleep again. She sat in the kitchen with a glass of wine, turning pages of a book without reading a single word. Then a sound. Not the sharp crack of something hitting glass, something deeper, more muffled. She got up, walked to the window. The apartment directly across, 4th floor, 2nd window, was lit. But it wasn't ordinary light. It was yellow, flickering, as if someone inside had lit a candle. Then the man appeared. He was in his 30s, tall, dark-haired. He wore a suit jacket, no tie. His arms hung at his sides, but his body was tense, his neck locked as if holding his head in place. He was waiting for someone. Claire instinctively stepped back, but couldn't take her eyes away. The door opened. Claire couldn't see the door, only the man's face. And that face changed. It wasn't exactly fear. It was something more complex. Recognition. And beneath it, something crushed, suppressed. Perhaps an old anger, perhaps a wound reaching back much further. The 2 silhouettes spoke, for a long time. Then one extended something to the other, something small, could have been a box or an envelope. The man took it, and the light went out. Claire stared at that dark window for 5 minutes, waiting. No one came out. Forget it, she told herself. Neighbors, an old friend, a business meeting. Nothing at all. But she wrote something in her notebook anyway. For the first time in 8 months, she wrote something down. At 7 a.m., sirens woke her. In front of the building across the street, 2 police cars, an ambulance, yellow tape, a stretcher, covered. Claire watched from the window. Her hands were trembling. Her neighbor, Madame Ferreira, 70 years old, that Portuguese woman who knew everything, caught her on the staircase around noon. "The man across the street," said Madame Ferreira, her voice low but her eyes curious. "Julian Voss, German or Austrian, I'm not sure exactly. He'd been living there for 2 years. They found him dead this morning." "How?" asked Claire. "Cardiac arrest," Madame Ferreira shrugged. "But his door was locked from the inside. The windows, too. The police were baffled." Locked room. How old was he? 37. That afternoon, Claire walked through the entire building. Habit, old habit. She found the caretaker, Victor, in the basement, smoking. He was an old man, his face carved with deep lines, his eyes tired but sharp. "Did you know Julian Voss?" Claire asked. Victor looked at his cigarette. "He was a quiet one. Out at 7, back at 7 in the evening. Like that for years. But in the last 3 weeks, he stopped." "What happened in the last 3 weeks?" "He had visitors at late hours. It wasn't always the same person. They all wore hooded clothing. I never saw their faces." He stubbed out his cigarette. "And last week, he said something strange to me. 'Victor,' he said, 'if anything happens, don't open my storage unit in the basement. Don't touch what's inside. Just call the police.'" Claire froze. "Did the police look at the storage unit?" "No," Victor shook his head slowly. "I didn't tell them. I did what Julian said. I called the police, but I didn't mention the storage unit. Then why are you telling me? The man looked at her for a long moment. Because you were a journalist. You moved here from outside. You don't know anyone. No one knows you. He paused. And because Julian Voss had no heart condition. I've worked in this building for 10 years. He went to the gym, he ran. A healthy man of 37 doesn't just die like that. That night, when Claire returned to her apartment, she sat down at her desk and opened her notebook. She began to write, fast, disorganized, like something that had been building inside her for 8 months finally releasing. Julian Voss, 37, German or Austrian. Locked room, hooded visitors, storage unit. A small object, a box, an envelope? And at midnight, she looked out the window again. The 4th floor of the building across the street was dark, but she felt it, that someone was standing there, right in front of the glass, without light, without movement. Then her phone rang. There was no number on the screen, only a message. I know what you saw from the window, Miss Novak. Don't worry. You'll understand everything soon. Claire set the phone down. Her hands were trembling, but this time it wasn't exactly fear. It was something she hadn't felt in 8 months. The feeling of being inside a story. And this story was only just beginning.